I'm going to tell you what my guess was. My
What
guess
was
was a 1978 remake starring Donald Sutherland called Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
God. Is that your number 5?
It's not anymore.
It didn't make my top 26.
So what you're saying is Invasion of the Body Snatchers is not indicative of what you typically enjoy for a horror flick. Ding, I get it. And we are live. Let's go. This is the Dos Padres podcast. I'm Major J. That guy right there, that's a Sundance kid. We're here covering the Boston sports scene with plenty of other antics and fun mixed in. And we have got a jam-packed show for you this week. Sundance, we've got Red Sox fighting for their lives in the ALCS. We've got the Patriots coming off a tough loss at home to the Cowboys last weekend. We've got another Fantasy 5 segment. We got another round of NFL picks. And we're going to close it out with another top 5. This being the Halloween season, we are coming with our top 5 horror movies. Sundance, how you feeling? And more importantly, what you sipping on?
Still repping the Aquafina. So
we still haven't heard from the reps yet, and I don't know what's going on with that. We're not coming together. I thought they were supposed to corporate sponsor this by now. This is episode 5. I don't know what's going on. We're gonna have to reach out.
Yeah, still waiting on the free merchandise from Aquafina, but
I have a T-shirt.
No T-shirts, no keychains, no swag from Aquafina yet. So let's pump the brakes. It's still early. I'm confident that sponsorship is on the way. What would you be sipping on this evening, Major J?
Well, thank you for asking, Sundance. I am sipping on a coffee, hot,
nice,
with a little Baileys mixed in.
Well done.
Well, I'm actually sipping from a mug that I feel like encompasses my feelings on the ALCS right now, as well as just the inevitable incoming weather that will be hitting the Northeast in the coming months and weeks and months. And I'm going to go ahead and take a sip right now. Warm.
Well, that certainly sounds good, Major J. Back to the theme of tonight's show. How are we feeling? Isn't it? This is just the way of a New Englander. It really is. I mean, you get kicked in the teeth, you get punched in the face, you name it. The insults are there. But we'll be smiling again because that's the way of a New Englander. It's just like the weather. It is gorgeous and the sun is shining, and 30 seconds later, where did those clouds come from? It's a downpour with a chance of snow, and that's in June sometimes. So, we were feeling great about the Sox. I mean, geez, they were really taking it to the Astros offensively. The home runs, I believe they were setting records for most home runs in a postseason. I think they had 21.
It was crazy on those lines. Just even just coming in the game 2 and game 3 alone this series was insane. The way
it's great.
A few days ago, the ups and downs in the series already have been kind of crazy. Off of game 1, going to Houston, smacked around, Carlos Correa. Yeah, we know what time it is. Blah blah blah. All right, not looking good. Next two new games, we come out in just lace. We were just talking about this. Luis Garcia was game 2. Started knocking him around, and magically he's got something wrong with him. So some kind of he's hurt, something's up, and magically he comes off, and they give 8 hours to Jake Odorizzi to throw some more, long toss, go in the outfield, spit some seeds, come back, and eventually make his way to throwing a few pitches just to get knocked around anyway.
Yep.
Yep. And then, game 3 came home, eruption. What was that 12-5, 12-3, 12-3?
12-3.
Went out to a 9-0 lead. They gave that 3-run homer to Kyle Tucker, I believe. And it's like, oh, all right, hopefully let's not let them back in it. And we did. It was a bump in the road. But yeah, man.
Then games 4 and 5, which the offense just went to sleep, unfortunately. I wasn't really surprised with Framber Valdez. Framber has not been our friend this season. If you look up the numbers, he in back-to-back starts back at the early turn of the season, April, May, he shut us down.
Yeah,
he
it's
was
nothing
the
new.
last guy I wanted to see get the ball this postseason for the Astros against the Sox. Sure enough, came up really big in Game 5. Astros have been putting runs on the board. Sale gave a valiant effort,
as good as we could possibly have asked for, given what he had shown those first couple starts.
Yep.
I mean, and that's the big talk now in the news is whether Cora left him in too long in that sixth. Sure. I wasn't upset with it. To me, it was a bit of hindsight. Only because he was coming up against lefties. I don't know that Josh Taylor would have come in and necessarily, I wouldn't have felt good about bringing Josh Taylor in to face necessarily an Alvarez or what have you either. So I'm not saying he should have been left in, but I wasn't up in arms about it like I feel like everyone else has been in the typical Boston media about it. I think it was a tough spot. I mean, he was facing that lineup a third time. Again, he had two big lefties in Brantley and Alvarez. I don't know. I mean, who else would he brought in? And again, besides Taylor, who do you have face those guys? I think at that point he's probably just like, he's throwing the ball well. Let's see if he can get the lefties out. I get it. It just didn't work out. But again, I think we got as much as Sale as we possibly could have. And like you said before, I think if the bats had woken up and didn't go 12, 13 innings between runs, we're not as focused on those runs, that he gave up because he left Sale in too long in the sixth, because some runs were on the board and whatever. But some runs are on the board, that changes the complexity of the game anyway. So
right.
I don't know. Like I don't know. It's very odd that this team went into hibernation for, again, 12 innings, 13 innings with the bats. All of a sudden they're, the pitching becomes an issue. The bullpen obviously didn't look good either of those last two games. Guys seemingly feel like they're pitching like out of their normal roles, which isn't true, but that's what it felt like. All of a sudden, the defense goes to crap, and Schwarber gets distracted by Altuve running to third and drops that throw to first. And it's like it felt like the August Sox all of a sudden. It felt like somebody waved the wand, and the August Sox just popped right back up.
And I do have one fear, and that is that Cora overmanaged Game 4 with Eovaldi coming in to pitch the ninth.
I would agree with that one. I'm with you on that one.
A lot of friends that I've talked to, people in the office, you're reciprocating it back right now. Yeah. I didn't love that move because Eovaldi's your Game 6 starter.
It felt too cute.
Well, here's the thing. When we got this from JD in the Bronx on last week's show, right. The more times you see a pitcher, the more likely you are to pick up on his tendencies and hit him a little bit more, just as the Sox really destroyed Garrett Cole a couple times.
Unless you're Framber Valdez, in which case it's a mystery for the entire season.
So listen, there's just some guys that are going to spook you, and Framber Valdez is that guy. He has our number. The great thing is, we're probably not going to see Framber Valdez again in this series in Games 6 or 7. Right. He's done. We have Eovaldi going tomorrow. You hope that ninth inning appearance didn't do anything to his effectiveness come tomorrow in Game 6. I do like our chances in Game 6. Game 7 is a total crapshoot. I have real nightmare visions of Erod coming off the mound in Game 7, second inning, down
been knocked
8-0,
Yeah.
and the entire Astrodome or wherever the heck they play, Minute Maid Park,
Minute Maid Park
is all
Astrodome's been
collectively
imploded, but-
asking, what time is it? Eduardo Rodriguez.
Which he set himself up for, unfortunately, but nonetheless. We definitely fear the Erod blowups that we've unfortunately seen too many of this year. Before he kind of went on this hot stretch recently, but those came way too frequently during the season, where he just, if he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. And second, third inning, he's gone because he's given up 5-6 earned, and he's walking off dejected, head down, etc. Like you said, it makes you wonder. Going back to Cora, he obviously knows Erod, knows his pitching staff better than anybody, and including that stuff. I think he's definitely clued into those types of things. Would he potentially look past Erod and make that start and go to a Pivetta?
I think he would, actually. I
absolutely think he would.
You and I have talked about this. I've said this before. I don't think Alex Cora deep down really likes Eduardo Rodriguez. Those two have had their spats.
Yes.
And quite frankly, Erod has taken the higher road most of the time. I don't think I believe he's a free agent to be this coming off season. Eduardo Rodriguez.
I believe he's coming up. Yeah, right.
I'm pretty certain he's a free agent, and I would be shocked.
You're
if
right.
He did
actually,
not tell his agent explicitly.
I'm done.
I am not going back to Boston.
I think I've heard that been speculated a bit throughout the season that what his future is going to be, if at all, with this team.
Right.
And I agree. I mean,
so we have plenty of shows to talk about the offseason and the hot stove. I agree with you. I think Pivetta gets the Game 7 start, but we got to win Game 6 first. Let's go, Eovaldi. There's no other pitcher I'd rather have going. And this is the last thing I'll say is you and I have certainly had our heyday of wiffle ball and high school baseball and little league and all that, which counts for absolutely nothing in the professional sports world. But you'd have to agree, an off day when you have a slumping offense is probably a good thing. So this travel day, I think it helps the Sox more than it helps Houston.
Get them out of their heads, take a breather, reset, refocus. They know they've already won a game and knocked the Sox off the ball, so to speak, in Game 2. They know they can go back and do it. This team, in general, with this whole season, and especially through the playoffs, is not phased long-term with these types of situations. They know how to regroup and refocus. Core knows how to get get this team. Not that he needs to, but he always has his finger on the pulse of his team. Knows how to get them right. I'm concerned, obviously, but
and on that note, with Cora pushing the right buttons, it's a long flight to Houston. He's queuing up. He's 100%. Queuing up Game 5 from the 1986 ALCS against the Angels when Dave Henderson took Donnie Moore deep. And the game, it was, people were punching their tickets for the Angels to go to the World Series.
Right.
I think Cora is putting a little bit of that on the Jumbotron in the plane, and they are going to see that, we can win on the road. We've done it. We're going to do it. Let's get it done, boys. Let's go.
Just like you said, just get that first one. We'll worry about Game 7 when we get there. But I think they're going to definitely rally around the fact they have Eovaldi on the mound. And going back to your point earlier, I don't think that ninth inning situation the other night is going to affect him. I think he's past any type of mental issues when it comes to that stuff. I think he's locked in. Mm-hmm. He knows his job. He's going to go out there. He knows that was an out of character. It wasn't his role. It just, that was, what you wad it up, you throw in the trash and move on. Now he's going to lock into what he knows. He's going to go in, and it should be a good game. And they just need to come in and knock Luis Garcia around like they did Game 2. And like your friend Pedro likes to say, who is Luis Garcia? Who is Luis Garcia?
Who is Luis Garcia? When the Boston media asks Pedro Martinez, who's pitching for the Astros? Are you afraid of him? Who is Luis Garcia? We are not afraid of Luis Garcia. No, absolutely not. Let's go.
Poppy behind the scenes calling the game for Fox or FS1 is going to be right there cheering the same thing. So, I guess we will, a week from now, next show, we'll be talking about either Sox in the World Series or sad faces Red Sox wrap up heading into, like you said, hot stove. But
Yeah.
All right. I think that wraps up our Sox talk for now. Sundance, as we move into our next segment, you and I think we agree. We appreciate everyone who is following along with us so far to this point. If anyone out there, if you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on so you don't miss any future shows. If you're catching us the audio feed through your favorite podcast provider, please rate and review. It would mean the world to us.
Click that little like button, that little thumbs up.
Little thumbs up. Just
Go ahead
click
and
it. It takes
click on it.
just a moment. And if you really want to, it'd be nice, hit the little red subscribe and hit the little bell too. But whatever. It would mean a ton to us. Might even be your best friend if you do.
All right. Enough plugs. Where are we going next?
You know where we're going next. We are taking on some Patriots talk here.
We're taking on Bill Belichick is what we're doing. I am happy to dive right into this.
Please.
And I got a bone to pick with the Hall of Fame coach. Listen, I am a number one Bill Belichick fan. I watch Bill Belichick, A Football Life, religiously before and during every Patriots season. Good old YouTube. There's 2 parts to it. It's such an awesome behind the scenes take. I believe in Bill Belichick and his leadership. How?
Yep. Oh boy.
He missed something. He missed something really big on Sunday. So if I could see as a fan watching on my TV at the end of the fourth quarter that his defense was completely gassed. Guys weren't even rushing the quarterback. They were so tired. They got down in their 3-point stance. The ball was snapped and they would stand up and they would just kind of look around as if, okay, where's the ball going next? The defense was gassed. Therefore, Major J, why on 4th and 3 near midfield in overtime do you punt the ball to Dallas, who has carved you up left and right? I don't know how you feel about that call. I think this game is on Belichick. If you ask me,
I'm vehemently with you on this.
This was on his part. Hold on. This was a dual Belichick. This was a Steve dad.
Oh yes,
Belichick. This was defensive coordinator and head coach. Steve Belichick should have grabbed his dad by the arm, thrown him on the field, called timeout to the officials himself before the punt team actually punted the ball, and said, "Dad, our defense is done. They are toast. They are done. They can't stop anything right now. They couldn't stop a 5-year-old handoff. You cannot put our defense back on the field. The game is over. I can guarantee you the game is over." Why?
And what happened?
Belichick has made these gutsy calls in the past where you've said, oh boy, I hope they get this 4th down. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. This one was clear, and Belichick has said it in the past.
Right.
If the defense isn't stopping anybody or if the offense isn't scoring any points, he's going to go one way or the other, and he's not afraid to make a gutsy call. Yeah. That was the game. I've said my piece on it. He should have gone for it.
And I 100% agree. And that's the thing. I feel like there's been a few of these, not a ton, but there's definitely been a few of these this season where he's made these calls, and it's left you thinking that doesn't seem like something Bill would have done even a year ago. Like it's almost like, who is this new what maybe he thinks is a new exciting Bill Belichick? It's not exciting. It's stressful. It's hurtful. It makes me want to throw up. Yes, at times. And especially when you've got a team on the ropes like Dallas.
Right. And here's the thing. It's when you go into the office, when you talk to your buddy off to the side, a family member, a dad or brother, whatever, and you both finish each other's sentences. In overtime, I really didn't like, when they punted. Yes. I mean, when people are talking about it in that sense, that this was a bad call.
Right.
And it was a bad call. They should have gone for it.
And there's always, we know there's always the armchair quarterback, second guessing, etc. But this goes beyond that. This is just when it's a universal head scratcher, again, from somebody who you're accustomed to generally making the correct decisions when it comes to play calling and situation management. That one in particular is a perfect microcosm of this, where you just left like, Bill, what? Like, did Eric Mangini jump in and take over your body for a few plays? Like, I don't understand. Like, it came. He's usually much more adept and aware when it comes to situations like you just pointed out with a gas defense, to say, okay, we're going to need to take a shot here, because otherwise we're just handing them points.
There you go.
I don't know. And again, with a team like Dallas, it's not like they had been, even if they were gassed, it's not like they had been stifling that offense. Like, they were starting to hum, and we know what they are. Even if they weren't humming, we know what they are. They're a high power and high octane offense.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like it was like not even just playing with fire. He was playing with an inferno. Like, I don't know. I don't understand.
No, Dallas is loaded. I mean, they've got two skill position players at the critical positions on offense.
Yes.
I mean, they've got two good tight ends. They've got two really good running backs. They've got three fantastic wide receivers. I mean,
at this point, maybe four, because Quincy Wilson's out there making incredible catches. That catch he made was a fourth down on the sideline to extend that play down the stretch that ended up leading to the game-winning touchdown to Lamb. Or no, I'm sorry, that was the extended catch to go out to so they could tie the game to force an overtime. I mean, he's their four. Really five when you think about it. They got Dalton Schultz at tight end, and that's only because they Michael Gallup hurt in IR. So yeah, I mean, I don't, like we said, we had them on the ropes. Not to say we were going to win the game, but we had them in a position where the Patriots had them in a position to at least maybe try to have a spot to maybe steal this game, especially after that broken play, Bourne touchdown, and it was just given away. They marched right down, tied, sent it overtime. And then I believe it was J.C. Jackson. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was J.C. Jackson that had that bad coverage. Well, really, he just bit too hard on the play fake that went to Lamb for the touchdown to win in overtime. When it was just, he gave a nice little bye-bye and then shove.
Yeah, it might have been Mills. Did not have a great.
I'm sorry. I think it might have been Mills.
I think it was Mills.
It was Mills.
Yeah. So Mills
I stand corrected.
That's okay. Mills was exposed a little bit in this game.
He was exposed a lot. I mean, if anything, he made himself look like he should never been signed after that game. And I had Mills. I mean, granted, it's far gone now, but I was never a fan of the Mills sign to begin with, other than we did need some depth. But this is why he's had stretches like this in Philadelphia where you can't count on him to cover a wet blanket. It's I don't know. It's disappointing.
So I'm glad you just said that. As a friend of mine in the office said to me when I said exactly that to him, I said, it was just a disappointing loss. And he stopped me and corrected me. He literally stopped me and corrected me. And he said, not disappointing loss. That's a tough loss. And he's right, because these are games that they should be winning. I mean, these are, a disappointing loss is when you lose by 20 and you thought you'd be in the game, or you thought you were going to win. That's disappointing. Your expectations are up here. The product on the field is down here. Right. Oh, you let me down. These games, you're in for the roller coaster ride. Mac throws the interception. Well, there goes the game. Hey, wait a second. There's enough time on the clock. We can dink and dunk a little bit. No, Mac and who caught the touchdown? Kendrick Bourne. Mac hits Kendrick Bourne on a 30-yard pass, goes right back at Diggs. I mean, you're just like, as a fan, you're like, this is
what we wanted to see. Like, the fact that they were finally forced. It took a really good offense to come in and force their hand to really play that way, and it kind of, and this will lead a little bit into when we get into to preview of the Jets game, but it forced them to open that up a little bit. Not only say really open it up, but really force the passing to drive the ball.
Right.
It took, and I think it was somewhat successful in the fact that they went straight after Diggs, because Diggs, even though he's getting all the highlights and the acclaim right now, he's a ball hawk, and a good one, obviously, like that with an interception in every game so far this season. He's not necessarily a great cover corner. He's an opportunistic ball hawk corner. And I think they knew that. And like, all right, you know what? If we can bait this guy a lot, they can get broken plays like that where he over pursues. And somebody, it wasn't just Diggs in that play. There was the other corner of safety that came in and overplayed that play, went for the pick, and that's what led to the Bourne touchdown. But nonetheless, like they clearly identified that and went after it, right. Which was nice to see Mac driving that ball a little more, and the fact that it's encouraging to see he could do it. All that makes it all the more tough to see that in the end, that defense and some of the play calling and situational calling wasn't there to finish it out, because we've said it before. When you have games, especially with this team that's basically playing 500 ball, you can't let a team like that off the hook. It's basically like the old Denny Green when he went ape on his press conference about, they are who we thought they were. We let them off the hook. That's what happened in this game. They had them on the ropes. That would have been a massive W for this team, a massive L for the Cowboys. And instead, it looks like Dak and company come out looking like heroes, like incredible. Rightfully so.
Right. So you hit on, a really big point there, which in essence is this. We should be 4-2. We could be. There's a chance we could be 5-1 right now. I mean, we should have beat the Bucks. That's a game that goes either way. We should have beat the Dolphins. That's a fumble, on the 10-yard line as we're driving to take the lead. And then this game, I mean, we are a few plays away from being 5-1. Think about that. So that's what's going to keep me on the hook here a little bit longer. I've been on this train that every week is a must win, but we know with the NFL, crazy things happen, and you're starting to see some of these other teams that started off hot slide back to the pack a little bit. You see what's happening with Denver. Denver's on the verge of their fourth loss. They're down 10-0 right now.
Yes, they are.
You've also seen Carolina come back to the pack a little bit. Wow. I mean, certainly McCaffrey's a big player for them. We all know that. He is the team. He is the offense. He is the safety valve that they rely on so critically. So the good news is, let's preview, right? If we can, the Jets game.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to do it again. Same thing as Houston. I mean, we better win this game 30-10. Air it out. I want to see both tight ends with touchdowns in this game. Jonnu Smith has got to get on track. Aguilar's got to actually hold on to the ball.
He needs to actually catch the ball. Right. He needs to stop alligator arms some of these passes. A good point on Jonnu. And I actually saw this just tonight. He was back. He's back run blocking this past game. Yeah. Run blocking on 70% of his snaps. So a lot of it is, granted, I wouldn't say he's out there playing his best anyway when he has been running routes. But when you're paying this guy the amount of money, they went after him aggressively in the offseason. And I understand it's all need based and you can't anticipate that. But when you had this guy who was supposed to be kind of a foundation of your passing attack, him and Hunter Henry with the two tight end sets, and you've got to bring him back and run block 70% of the time. I mean, far be it from me to say, but it certainly seems like you're not necessarily utilizing his talents to the utmost. And I know Hunter Henry's been the pass catching tight end to this point, but Jonnu can catch the ball.
You're so right. You know who blocks really well? He doesn't catch the ball that well. He doesn't get open ever, but he blocks pretty well. You know who should really be doing the brunt of that? I'll give you one guess.
All right.
Go ahead. I'll give you. Here's a clue. One guess. Who should be doing that? That's right.
We're going down this road again. Yes,
that's
we are.
Right.
We are going down this road.
Harry.
It's funny you say that because
former first round draft.
He was out there a number of plays down the stretch in that game against Dallas. I saw him lining up tight, and I'm like, Are you lining up tight to run around? Or are you actually going to stand back? Is Sundance actually going to be prophetic in this? And he really just ran up the field 5 yards and threw a couple of hands out, which I'm like, that doesn't count.
I'm telling you, he's a waste
He
of a
could be
roster spot. I keep saying it.
Well, we've got that trade deadline coming up in a week, Sundance, and they could be getting feeling some calls for Mr. N'Keal Harry.
Well, that's for next week.
Nobody.
So listen, they need to open it up. I don't need a statement game out of the defense because it wouldn't impress me. It's the Jets. Anything less than 30-10 is going to be disappointing. Not tough, but disappointing. Like, let's go, guys. Hang a nasty L on the Jets here, to really send a message to the rest of the league that, we're getting there. We're getting better. And then you put yourself in a position to get 500 against the Chargers. And I know the Chargers are fantastic, but we seem to play well against the Chargers and come out on top.
Well, we also did beat that Chargers team last year, I think 43-0. So granted, different situation, etc. But another team that maybe is going to come out of the back. Again, these are types of games. I feel like this team, with even through that loss last week, because of the flashes we saw on offense, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about maybe opening up the passing game a little more. I think maybe what we saw against Dallas on the offensive side is going to start carrying over to this game with the Jets and maybe kind of rolling forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see things open up more on offense, taking some more chances, trying to make it, like you said, maybe not a statement game, but sort of a statement game, and we can use that to springboard. This team is certainly, I think they're better than their record. I don't think they're great, but I think they're certainly better than the record. I think they're certainly capable of putting things together middle of the season for the second half to maybe roll into some wins. And this can certainly be the time where that starts to happen. So I agree. I don't know about 30-10. I'll take 23-10. I think that's probably in line with expect 23, 26, 27, something along those lines. I think if they are going to open up that offense a little more, it would lead to mid to high 20s in points. So, I don't know. I think 30 points. That's Sundance's marker, and I think we're going to be holding them to that. All right. Any final thoughts on the Pats as we go into the Jets game before we move on?
They better score 30 points. All right. That wraps up our Patriots coverage. We'll be back to talk about the review of the Jets game next week. That will now take us into our Fantasy 5 segment, Sundance. Your favorite, my favorite, everyone's favorite. I know. As you've been waiting with bated breath for this, I appreciate you holding on. All right, so as we move into our fantasy... Let's see the 5-minute time count go.
All right, it's a soft 5 minutes. That said... Soft 5 minutes.
You are rather loquacious as it would.
Well, I will do my best for yours and everyone else's sake. But before we get into our players, a couple quick points here. We are moving into bye week Armageddon. We have 6 teams on bye this week, Sundance. Dallas, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, the Chargers, Jacksonville, and Minnesota.
Wow.
There are a lot of good players in those teams. Notably, Buffalo and Dallas are gonna hurt a number of owners and rosters out there. So people are gonna be screaming a little bit. Waivers have already run for this week. At least the first round of waivers have already run this week. Players that have been dropped for those claims are probably still on waivers, ready to get claimed maybe tomorrow morning, Friday, over the weekend, etc. Everyone's got to stay diligent with that. And remember, this time of year when you've got bye week Armageddon like this, week 7, a lot of teams are out there. They need a win. They need a W. They're like the Patriots. They need a win to stay alive, to kind of move forward.
30 points.
You need to score much more than 30 points in fantasy, but point taken. You got DTN, do the necessary. Do whatever you need to do. Scrap, claw for a W this week, folks. You're going to have to make some uncomfortable decisions, maybe some guys you don't want to drop that you've been holding on to. That's what it takes. You need to get a win. Do what you got to do. Get it done. All right. That said, we're going to go ahead and bring up our 5 players here. All right. Now we are going to start with number 5. Allen Lazard. Now, as you see, by the old tag, week 7 ad. So basically, this is for this week only. This is not a big ad for down the stretch. This guy is not going to necessarily help you win any championships. This is for this week specifically only, going back to the point I was making earlier. Allen Lazard is currently 3% owned on Yahoo. He's basically free and available anywhere you can get him. Green Bay's taking on the Washington football team, who notably has an atrocious passing D, as we saw last week against Kansas City, who roared back to take them out in the second half. Expect Green Bay to have their way with them at Lambeau. Marquez Valdez-Scantling still on IR, makes Lazard essentially their number 2 or 3 receiver, and 3 if you want to count Randall Cobb. Devontae Adams is going to do what he's going to do, but there's going to be other receivers involved in this passing attack that Rodgers is going to have fun with. I think Lazard is going to be a part of that. He's a nice, cheap option to plug in at your last flex play for this week only. If you need some cheap points, I think this is the guy to go and get quietly that can help you to a W that everyone needs. All right, from Lazard, we're going to go to number 4, Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, he's owned everywhere. Everyone knows him. He was a first-round pick in a lot of leagues in PPR. This is a guy, if you can, go out and trade for now while you can. He's coming off of 2 weeks ago, that game in London, that home game in London, Sundance, where Ridley did not play. He ended up not playing for personal reasons, screwed a number of owners on that, this guy included. They are coming off a bye last week, so Ridley's a kind of a quiet guy where I think you can go and maybe gauge his owner a little bit as far as his availability, who probably going to be fed up and with his performance to this point, as he's underperformed. Not necessarily his fault. He's been utilized a little weird as far as his average depth of target is a lot shorter than normal. I do think the Falcons showed a lot of signs of the offense coming out a little bit with that game a couple weeks ago in London against the Jets. I think Pitts is starting to emerge, which is going to help Ridley a little bit. Matt Ryan's been playing well his last 3 games, 8 interceptions, no picks. I think things are finally starting to move a little bit for this team as far as getting some cohesion offensively. That's just going to benefit Ridley. I think he finally gets back to normalcy and towards expectation with where we drafted him at the end of the first, early second round, established himself as the alpha. Falcons have a nice schedule coming up, I believe 8th in terms of strength of schedule against the pass. Now that we've already established that Stephon Diggs was the big trade target for the receivers last week. Now Ridley takes over that number 1 spot in terms of going and trading for a receiver. I would go out and get him at a reasonable price if you can. Number 3, Damian Harris. Sundance, you can perk up for this one. Damian Harris of the New England Pats. If you own him, within reason, I say you go out and explore trying to move him to see if you can get something for him. At this point, as we know, he's been getting beat up a little bit the last few weeks. He had a chest injury, did some stuff here and there. He's starting to cede some snaps and situations to Ramondre Stevenson a little bit. I think that's starting to shake out to be more of a timeshare as the weeks wear on. I think exploring getting something of value for Harris now while his value is still pretty good. Even though he had a rough game last game out, I still think his value is high enough where the name value's there. He's a Patriot. You might get something good for him. Before this turns into a full-blown timeshare in the backfield. Sundance, one other thing, you can help me out here. Another reason that you may want to look into moving him. See the graphic here? You see the way he's holding the ball right there? This is actually taken just moments before another presumed fumble that we know he's been having issues with. So the fumbles are not helping his situation at all.
Oh, get it off the screen. Look, can we move on to fantasy tip number 2? Or
sure, we can. Trade Damian Harris. All right. Number 2,
Michael Gallup. I know this name.
Yes, you do. He is currently on IR for the Cowboys, but he's 41% owned on Yahoo right now, so he's readily available. He might be on some other folks' rosters in the IR slot. Either way, if you can pick him up or add him, I would absolutely do it. And it's really indicative in general. I want any piece of this Cowboy offense I can get with the way they're running. I think they are just going to keep getting better and better as the season goes on. If it means getting Michael Gallup as a piece of it when he comes back, fine. It's also indicative in general. I'd be going out and trying to trade for and buy CeeDee Lamb, Zeke, anyone else that I can get my hands on in this offense right now, especially with the fact that they are on bye this week. So if any of these guys are on rosters and teams that you can identify that need a W right now, maybe you can get them a little cheaper than you normally would have been able to. So I would Michael Gallup, or any other Cowboy if you can. But Gallup being the most available one, I'd go and add him if you can. And until he gets activated off IR, you can stash him in your IR slot until they activate him. All right, brings us to a number one, Rashad Bateman, receiver from the Ravens. 28% owned on Yahoo at the moment. Surprisingly low, given the fact that he was on admittedly on everyone's ad list this week for waivers. He was their first-round pick out of Minnesota this year. There's a reason why the Ravens made it a point to draft a receiver in the first round this year, folks. I know this team has been primarily a run-heavy offense. They needed to add more receivers to that depth chart behind Marquise Brown. Bateman started off slow, had a groin injury that kept him on PUP early. He came back last week for his first game. Ended up playing a lot more than they thought. 2/3 of the snaps he was on the field for, 22% target share, which is only going to go up. The Ravens love this guy. Sammy Watkins is still hurt. And again, going back to the point, Ravens are primarily a run offense. They have not been that way this year. They've got a cavalcade of fossils in the backfield running this ball right now. It's Devontae Freeman, the ghost of Le'Veon Bell, Latavius Murray. They'd bring back Ray Lewis if they could to run the ball out of the backfield right now if they could, just to have warm bodies at this point. They're passing the ball at a much higher rate than they have in years. Lamar's accuracy is top 5 right now. If you go back a few weeks ago, I was telling people to buy Lamar Jackson. This guy's tied to that. This guy's a playmaker. He may not serve Marquise Brown as Hollywood Brown as number 1, but he's going to be a great number 2. I would get him now while you can, and then play him as quickly as this week against Cincinnati. All right, that pretty much wraps up our Fantasy 5. Sundance, do you feel a little more knowledgeable? Feel a little better? Do you feel like you're getting the hang of this a little bit? You ready to jump in a league? Maybe do a little
bit. You add guys. You trade for guys. You waive certain players. A key word tonight is indicative. So there must be some predictive analytics that you are hip to, and I am picking up on these.
All right, we're going to get you there. We are going to get you there slowly but surely. We're going to get you there. All right, folks. Yeah, but do what you can. Go and get that W this week, and we'll check back in with another Fantasy 5 segment next week, which rolls us into our next segment, Sundance. It's one of our favorites. It is our Week 7 NFL Padres picks. But before we can jump into our picks for this week, we need to take a look on how we did last week. Only because we have to, not because we want to. But we will nonetheless. Let's take a look. Week 6, I went 6-8, sad face. You went 8-6, which puts us both tied in mediocrity at 40, 36-1.
Over 500. It's all
over
that matters.
500. At this rate,
500.
we will be alternating months driving to each other's homes with beer in hand. I don't know what that means. Let's hope not. But God, we are just barely better than adequate.
All right, let's get it going.
All right. So that said, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and bring up our DK Sportsbook.
I did a lot of research online this week for these picks. So I am confident that I will win at least 80% of these picks this week. That's how good I feel.
Oh, that's bold. Okay. 80%? Is that what you said?
80%. So if there's 10 games, I'm going 82. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's bold, and that is quite a high bar, and I'm going to hold you to that because I'm expecting to go 60% and be happy with it at this point. Okay. All right. So we're going to start off with the first game on Sunday. We're going right at it. Jets at Patriots. Pats right now giving 6.5. Sundance, I'm going to let you take this one first.
Okay. Patriots better score 30 points, as we've covered earlier here multiple times. And when they score 30 points, combine that with a crappy Jets offense and a hopefully rested defense. They've had 7 days now to rest the Patriot defense, or at least by the time the game kicks off. So you add those two factors together, Major J, it is indicative of a Patriots win, and they will cover. Easy. Patriots.
Easy. All right. I am going to agree with you here. I'm taking the Pats. Finally getting that elusive first home victory. Again, as we said earlier, I think the offense, the strides they made in that Dallas game carry over a little bit here. And we're looking at a pretty inept Jets offense. So I think the Pats win by at least conservatively 10, but hopefully more. But I'm going to take the Pats, giving the points as well. All right, that brings us into our second game. Washington going to Green Bay, as we spoke about a moment ago with Alan Lazard. Green Bay giving 7.5. I am going to go ahead and take Green Bay giving the points here. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think Washington has a ton of it. They do have a ton of injuries on the offensive side between, again, Logan Thomas, the tight end, is out. Antonio Gibson playing with a stress fracture in his leg, missed the fourth quarter of the last game, had to have MRIs. He may not even play. Tyler Heineke's kind of coming down to earth a little bit. I think there's a lot going on there that it's not going in the wrong direction. Again, the passing defense is terrible. I think Rodgers and company just goes and embarrasses them. So absolutely taking Green Bay, given the points.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Packers as well. I'm not going to pick against Aaron Rodgers at home. It was rather funny the way he taunted the Chicago crowd this past weekend, letting them all know that he owns them. He still owns them. Right. He will forever own them. I don't know that he owns Washington. Look it up. He probably does. I'm taking Washington.
Yeah.
No. I'm taking.
You're taking Green Bay.
I'm taking Green Bay.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is before Rodgers also went on and had his press conference. I think it was yesterday, talking about he's basically comparing this team right now to the 2010 team that went to the Super Bowl. So that's interesting. I'm glad he's got high aspirations for his team.
I don't think they're that good, but they'll win this game and they'll cover.
Absolutely. All right, so it takes us to our next 1 o'clock game. That is Cincinnati going to Baltimore. Baltimore giving the 6. This is one I'm actually looking forward to. I think this could be a really good game. Sundance, what's your play on this?
I think this is two good football teams that are going to play some smash mouth football in the first half. I like them to air it out in the second half. I'm actually going to roll with Cincinnati on this one. Lamar is definitely coming into his own this season, not establishing himself, but he's starting to find a rhythm, obviously. But I like what Cincinnati does. They spread the ball around quite a bit on offense. And I do think this is going to be an offensive game in the second half. So I'm actually going to take the Bengals. They're not for an upset, but I'll take them with the points.
No, I like it. I'll be honest, I'm actually taking Cincinnati with the points as well for those exact reasons. I think that with everything Baltimore is doing on offense, Lamar, etc., I think Cincinnati can somewhat keep pace with that with those receivers. Yeah. So Cincinnati has been as great as those receivers have been, as great as Burrow has been, they've actually been a very run-heavy offense in neutral game scripts for the most part. I think this is the type of game, kind of what you're alluding to in the second half, that's going to force them to not say scrap the run, but let Burrow loose a little bit more and take advantage of those receivers. I think they're able to take advantage of that and keep that and run that score up. I would definitely take the over 46.5 on this, but I'm absolutely taking the Bengals +6. So that takes us to our next game at 1 o'clock. That's the Chiefs going to Tennessee. Kansas City giving the 5 going there. So Tennessee coming off their big home win on Monday night against Buffalo. So now back-to-back. That's quite a back-to-back schedule there with having Buffalo, then Kansas City at home, two high-powered teams. I'm actually going to be taking Kansas City in this game. As impressed as I was by Tennessee last week with how they took down Buffalo, I don't feel like they can replicate that. I honestly don't. Not 2 weeks in a row, even if they're at home. And I think Kansas City, starting that second half of that game against Washington last week, starting to click and find something. I think this could be the start of a roll for them. So I'm definitely going to take Kansas City given the 5.
So can we clarify here? Who's getting the 5 points?
Tennessee is getting the 5 at home.
Tennessee's getting the 5. Give me Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay.
Tennessee at home getting the 5 points. I agree with you. I don't think they're going to win, but I do actually think that they will keep up with Kansas City. And Tennessee's got heart. They are a team that
they've got that beast named Derrick Henry, who
they do. So what does that tell you? That tells you that if they get a lead, they can control the clock a little bit. I'm going to take Tennessee.
That's a good point. All right, great. So next game is going to be Carolina going to the Giants. Carolina is giving the 2.5. What do you think about this one, Sundance?
Oh, Carolina all day. I talked to my Giants insider in the office this week, and it's been the cat is out of the bag. The Giants are just an atrocious football team, and here's how you really know that. I mean, put aside the inside information I get in the office. From this New York Giants connection.
It's amazing what you're privy to begin with there.
So, look at my picks percentage.
Now, this week, right?
What you always have to be leery of, and I'll wrap this up right here. You have to be leery of players and coaches when they ask the fans to be patient and supportive instead of booing and criticizing when they're not doing that.
Worrying about accountability.
That's never a good sign. I thought Joe Judge was on track here. He may not be, and he may not be back next season. I'll say that. I think I said it a week ago. I'll say it again. He is. It's a dumpster fire over there, and so I will take Carolina all day.
I'm taking Carolina as well. I won't even belabor the point. You've got you basically have two quarterbacks playing poorly between Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. So it's like flip a coin there.
Yeah.
The Giants are still down playmakers on offense. No Barkley, probably no Galladay again. Shepard's banged up. They lost Kadarius Toney to an ankle. Like at this point, I don't want to say Carolina's going to get right. But I'm going to take the team that I think has a better defense. Rather, I think Carolina can go in and take this by a touchdown.
Yeah, they've quit on the season. The Giants.
It seems like it.
Working them, they're done. Move on.
Daniel Jones isn't playing well. He's not running. Like I don't know what's going on. He's still very Jekyll and Hyde. At this point, I'm all set with that. Okay, so that takes us to the next game, which is Atlanta going to Miami. Atlanta giving 2.5 on the road. I am going to go ahead and take the Falcons here. Somewhat of a homer pick, and I get it, fanboy, whatever. I'm going to take the Falcons here, as I was talking about in the Calvin Ridley spot during the Fantasy 5. I think the Falcons' offense is starting to get together a little bit. Arthur Smith is kind of getting things going. I'm not saying they're going to be gangbusters, but they're starting to get it rolling a little bit. Coming out of the bye, I'd much rather them at home off the bye, but coming out of the bye, Miami just is in shambles. Brian Flores, I like him as a coach, but it clearly, I think he's lost that team. There's rumors of players in the locker room just that want out at this point. Again, you've got Atlanta coming off of a win, going into the bye, coming into this game. I think, again, Matt Ryan's playing well. Things are starting to click. I'm going to go ahead, even on the road, give the 2.5. What do you think?
Okay. So how about this? A little tease, and I'll be brief. Next week's show, we have lined up Matt Canada of Pro Football Network. He is an actual football insider.
This is a big name, folks. And, Pro Football Network. Look it up.
Pro Football Network, and Matt gives us a lot of. He provides a lot of inside information, really good coverage on the Miami Dolphins, and so we're gonna take a look at them next week. Hard, being a division foe for the Patriots. I'm gonna take the Dolphins here. I just can't believe the Dolphins are that bad. And I'm sorry, but the Falcons, they're not a very good football team. They're not terrible. But I have ulterior motives.
But they're not good. They're not good.
I have ulterior motives. I want them to slide so that Cordero Patterson is traded back up north to the Patriots. I'm trying to make this happen. Bill, I hope you're watching, and I hope your son is watching. Steve Belichick, I hope you're watching too. Next time that scenario comes up, grab your dad by the arm and call a timeout before he sends the punt team out in overtime.
Okay. Wow. All right. We're making a point there. All right. So next game is going to be now we're into the 4:00 slate. Detroit going to LA, take on the Rams. The Rams are giving 15.5 at home. By all means, add this one to your 80% mark, please, Sundance.
Okay, so you've got, this is one where you take a look at the head coaches. You've got Sean McVay lining up against Dan Campbell. Sean McVay is very strong. He's handsome. He's in shape. But Campbell will bite your knees and ankles. And you can't score a lot of points when your knees and ankles are bit up. So I'm going to take the Lions here. I'm going to call the upset as well. How do you like that? I'm going to call the upset. The Rams are not. They're not one of the top teams for me in the NFC.
Okay.
No, they're not.
All right.
No.
So who do you have? What tangent here? Who do you have the Rams behind in the NFC? Do you think who's definitively ahead of them? Would you say?
They're behind the Cardinals. They are behind the Cowboys. They are definitely behind the Tampa Bay Bucks. So
those are all four. Yeah, those are all legitimate.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. All right. So you're taking Detroit, getting the 15.5.
They're going to win. They won't even need the 15.
And you are taking Detroit to get. Wow, that's quite a 180. Given the fact that we were talking about
this is a revenge
the Lions
game
last week.
This is a revenge game for Jared.
You have to remember that it's also a revenge game for Matt Stafford. So
not really. It's the Lions.
Well, in name, at
Stafford's a nice guy. He does a gazillion community charity events. He loves Detroit. There's no revenge factor there. But Goff is the dude who was sent packing, and so I'm going to take Detroit.
All right. Well, this is not an upset special for me by any means. I am taking Detroit with the points, more or less for the same reasons. I just think 15.5 points is a lot in general. I think Campbell and Goff are going to have too much pride, too much to play for, given the situation going back to LA. I think the Rams do win this, probably going away, but I think Campbell at least has this team playing and trying and wanting to play hard for him still, where even a backdoor cover of that 15.5 is possible. Detroit backdooring it and getting in and losing by 13, I think is viable here. This has got backdoor cover written all over it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take Detroit getting the 15.5, which takes us into the next game on the 4:00 slate. That's Philadelphia Eagles going to Las Vegas, taking on the Raiders. Raiders are giving 3. I'll lead off on this one, Sundance. This one was a tough one for me, actually. I took probably longer on this one than any game on the slate. I'm landing on Philadelphia getting the 3. I think despite the loss last week, I think Philly looked pretty decent, held their own against Tampa. I think my feeling is Hurts is going to give the Raiders some problems as far as his RPO style and
Hurts is going to give the Raiders some hurts. Yeah.
There you go. You can copyright that one. I think the Vegas is going to have some issues containing him. And I think you can see Devontae Smith kind of erupt a little bit for a big game. Generally, Vegas has been playing. The secondary has been playing pretty well as far as coverage on receivers. But I think between Hurts' mobility, Devontae Smith getting behind the defense a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and take Philly to cover with the 3. What say you, Sundance?
No more John Gruden. Home game for Vegas, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
This
is in Vegas.
Yeah, give me the Raiders all day long. Raiders big. Raiders will win big.
Raiders big. All right, lock it in. All right, next game on the slate is actually going to be the Bears traveling to Tampa for a 4:25 start. Bucks are giving 12. What do you think about the Bucks covering the big number?
You never know what you're getting with the Bears. They're probably going to lose, but you just don't know offensively. The defense is okay.
This could be the game that make or breaks your 80% mark. So
it is, which is why I'm really struggling with it. I'm gonna go Tampa. You know what? I'm gonna go Tampa at home. They'll put up points. Go Tampa.
all right, I as well. I am as
You as
well
well.
taking Tampa here. Giving the points. I don't think Chicago again offensively can handle it. Fields has improved over the last couple of weeks, I believe, but in the end, I still don't trust the coaching staff. I don't trust the play calling. Matt Nagy has his thumb on everything. He thinks he's smarter than he actually is. I think as much as Tampa's secondary is susceptible to the pass, and that's where their weak spot has been, I don't think Fields right now, or whether it's his talent or his ability or the play calling, they can take advantage of that enough to be able to keep this game close. I think this is going to be yet another Tampa runaway. So I'm going to take the Bucks minus the 12 here, which takes us into next game is Houston going to Arizona. Arizona laying 17.5 right now, which is crazier than the Rams giving the 15.5. That said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm taking Arizona minus the big number, even at 17.5. After what I saw, I'm throwing out the Houston game against the Pats a couple weeks ago. I'm looking more last week at Indianapolis, getting trounced 31-3. That's more indicative of who Houston actually is. I don't see them getting any better from that. That's who they really are. I don't see them being able to keep pace at all with Arizona. I think the Cardinals are going to just go roughshod in this game. You've got DeAndre Hopkins' revenge game. I don't know if he's going to take advantage of it, but it's just another narrative throw in there. They're outclassed at every spot. I don't think there's any problem for the Cardinals here, and I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is going to have any issue with running up the score to keep this momentum going for the Cardinals. So give me the Cardinals giving the 17.5.
Okay, so again, I have a Cardinals connection in the office, as you know, someone who is directly linked into Cliff Kingsbury. I have some information.
Ryan Gosling. It's me.
Your buddy,
yeah.
Ryan Gosling and Cliff Kingsbury.
Doppelganger.
While Arizona is going to win this game, they're not going to win it by that much. So I'm actually going to take the dumpster fire Houston. I will take them even on the road. It's not a revenge game for DeAndre Hopkins. It's when guys get traded to a better place and they're looking back like, thank you very much.
Well, it's
there's
just
there's no revenge going on.
Really trying to get revenge per se.
Yeah.
No, right.
So I'm gonna take Houston. And one quick side note, production wise, Major J, when you do go back and edit this one, if you could maybe somehow find a way to put a bell in every time you say the word indicative. I think that is the buzzword this evening, and you have not hit the limit yet, but I want you to just keep that as a side note, production. If we could do that.
Indicative.
Ding. I think it's been dropped at least a dozen times.
Is that going to be for both of us or just for me? Can I ding you for that as well, please?
You can ding me for that as well.
I plan on it. Thank you. All right. Indicative dings. Noted. Takes us into the 8:20 game. Oh, man. Colts going to San Francisco, traveling cross-country, Niners giving 4.5. Sundance, what do you think on this?
Who's playing quarterback for San Francisco right now?
It's going to be Garoppolo.
It's going to be Garoppolo?
It's not confirmed, but all signs are pointing to him coming off the calf. Trey Lance isn't even practicing with his knee. It's going to be Garoppolo.
Okay, and the Colts are somewhat showing, some guts and some life.
Yes.
I don't like them on the road. I'm not going to take them. I will take San Francisco.
Okay. I am actually going to take the Colts getting the 4.5 for the reasons we actually just said there. Them as a team and Carson Wentz individually, they're all starting to click a little bit. Obviously, you play Houston. It's a get-right game in general. But I think overall things are starting to kind of gel and work together a little bit. T.Y. Hilton came back last week. I'm not sure if he's ready to go. He actually got nicked up in that game, but he potentially could be there as well as another weapon for Wentz. Wentz in general is just starting to play probably the best ball he's played in maybe 3 years at this point. Sure. I think things are starting to come together a little bit. San Francisco, They're good. Something's still a
Something's
little off.
off.
I
I
can't
agree.
put my finger on it. So I think this is one of those games again. I expect the Niners to win, but I think the Colts can play them to within a field goal. So I'm going to take the points. Which takes us into our final game on the slate, which is actually the Monday night game. The Saints are going to Seattle, and the Saints are giving the 4.5 on the road in Seattle. I'll lead this one off. I am actually going to take Seattle in this one, getting the points. I think despite the fact that we're, Russ in prime time, not there, Gino has looked shaky at best. I think this being at home, I think the team overall, and your boy Pete Carroll, they respond in prime time at home. I think the receivers, I think Gino can get the ball enough to the receivers where they can make some plays. Defense steps up a little bit finally and kind of shuts down the Saints. So I'm definitely going to take Seattle. Getting the points at home, not only getting the points, this is my upset special. I'm going to take Seattle at home for the outright win.
Yeah, this is a tough one to pick. This is probably the toughest game on the slate. I'm not sure which way to go. Obviously, quarterback issues at hand for Seattle. Can Seattle just try to keep the ship afloat until Russell Wilson comes back? I have a lot of respect for Sean Payton, and I like what Jameis Winston is doing. It is on the road, and that's important to keep in mind. But I'm going to take the Saints.
Saints, all right. It ends up with yet one more head-to-head that we're going to have to close the week out there. So I guess if you do hit your 80% that you're guaranteeing, that probably puts me at 50 to 60, which was basically my goal. So we're both spot on. So that's going to work out well. Looking forward to our overall records at the end of next week. All right, so that closes out our Week 7 NFL Padres picks. That's going to bring us into our final segment. Another fun one. It's our top 5 horror movies as we enter now the Halloween season. We're right in the thick of it now, the Halloween season here. And this should be another fun one, given the way some of our other top 5s have gone. So, Nitz, I'm gonna let you lead off if you want here.
Okay, this is a really difficult list. The criteria is impossible to assign to it. Are you going off of blood and guts? Are you going off of monsters? Are you going off of it has a Halloween feel to it? Is it the kind of movie that you watch at this time of year? We threw all that out the window in a sense and just said go with whatever, with the exception of Jaws. So we are going to put this asterisk up right now.
Absolutely. Jaws is disqualified. Absolutely.
Jaws does not count as a horror movie in this episode. I prefer to save that for a different list, probably top 5 summer movies. Summer Catch, I'm sure will make your top 5 for that list that will come.
It's probably going to be higher than 4.
it might be. So here we go. Top 5 horror, scary, whatever you want to call it type movies. My number 5 was a childhood favorite. Watch this, as a 6-year-old. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Over and over again at night, during the day.
Can I guess it? Finish, but then I want to guess it.
You could try to guess it. I don't know if you'll get it.
Oh, I'm going to get it. I know this one.
It's Swamp Thing.
I was wrong.
I knew it. Swamp Thing was awesome.
I am immediately filled with anger that I forgot about this movie because it absolutely would have been. Is there anything more iconic than when he reaches up to the sun and regrows his arm?
It does
it's.
Oh, it's awesome. Phenomenal. You just hit it in a nutshell. The way he regenerates himself based on sunlight, and he saves the damsel in distress, but my goodness, it had such a creep factor with the music. It was like a rattle. I don't know the instrument that was used for it, but it was just really cool. Google it if you want. My number 5 is Swamp Thing.
And the villain in that, which also started off as a male, but then transformed and ended up being absolutely disgusting as far as what he turned into at the end of that movie. So absolutely, that's a fantastic call. I love it. I'm gonna tell you what my guess was. My
What
guess
was
was a 1978 remake starring Donald Sutherland called Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Is that your number 5?
It's not anymore.
It didn't make my top 26.
So what you're saying is Invasion of the Body Snatchers is not indicative of what you typically enjoy for a horror flick. Ding, I get it. Point made. It is not my number 5. It is on the top 20.
Okay.
And if you need to know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers was actually number 10.
Pray tell, Goody Proctor, what is your number 5?
Number 5. If we're being real, you're probably going to have the same type of reaction to this movie. I don't care. It's a guilty pleasure movie. And again, going back to the loose restrictions on this list, I just took not necessarily the top 5 that I thought were the best movies, just the ones I generally like the most, whatever.
That's your list.
So this one, 1996 flick. It's carrying over the theme from last week's show with Quentin Tarantino. It is From Dusk Till Dawn, starring a younger George Clooney, kind of post-ER, with Quentin Tarantino, who wrote the screenplay, directed by famed horror zombie director Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Starring a couple of criminals who kidnap a father-daughter couple, Harvey Keitel and Juliette Lewis, I believe.
Juliette Lewis, yeah.
They go down to Mexico, go into a topless bar to hide out. Turns out that bar is filled with vampires. Some awesome cameos in this movie. It was my first exposure at the time to Danny Trejo, who ended up not realizing Danny Trejo was also in one of my other favorite cult classics, Desperado, with Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek, who's also in this movie, directed by Robert Rodriguez. You had that guy named Sex Machine. You had Fred Williamson of NFL fame in this, and again, Salma Hayek. Fun, gory flick. One of those movies that when it's on, I leave it on. So that was my barometer as far as making this top 5. From Dusk Till Dawn, my number 5.
Not on my top 26. Interesting pick.
I'm not surprised by that at all. I didn't expect this to be anywhere near.
No, it's a good pick.
I love the movie. I think it's fantastic. Again, probably because it's Tarantino, but whatever. All right, so number 4. I'll lead off here. Number 4 for me is the original Saw from 2004. For me, this movie kind of brought back the genre a little bit. We had the heyday of the horror movies and the franchises from like the 70s and the 80s with the Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, all that stuff. Came back a little bit in I think it was like 96 when Scream came out. I think we were seniors, somewhere around there, right? Which was a good series. And that Scream brought that genre back a little bit. But for me, like Saw really brought back the horror genre.
No, it's a franchise too.
Yeah, right. And thank you. It's 9 movies now. I didn't see the last one with Chris Rock, but I thought the original. Usually, I'll go with originals when it comes to these because they set the pace for the whole thing. But I thought it was a really original script. All the puzzles and the character backstories and the creativity and the interweaving all those stories and those characters. Carrie Ellis, I thought was fantastic in it. Twist ending, which you didn't really see a lot of until this came out. I think it's again, set the franchise up, set the genre up again for the next 15, 20 years. Saw is number 4 for me. What's your number 4?
Well done, Saw. Again, this one comes right out of my childhood. Parents of the Year, 1982. I think I was 5 years old. This one was, rented from the local VHS rental store. This is pre-Blockbuster.
Did you say 1982?
1982.
Oh boy. I have a guess. I'm going to let you go ahead.
So I'm not sure why my parents let me watch as many horror movies as they did as a child growing up. A slight psychological scarring.
Because Sam and Martina are awesome.
Fantastic
Shout
parents.
out. Yeah.
Shout out, Sam and Martina. American Werewolf in London is my number 4.
But great call. And again, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm actually angry that one completely evaded me for
Oh,
this, and
yeah.
I'm frustrated it did because that would instantly make at least my top 10. This
Yeah,
was tough.
it
Okay.
was done so well. The makeup artist won an Oscar, I believe. His name escapes me. I couldn't even begin to guess it. But I do know that he actually won an Oscar for best, makeup job. David Naughton, Griffin
Yes.
Dunn. Griffin Dunn is phenomenal. He keeps coming back.
He's
as
coming
this
back.
victim
Fantastic.
that keeps
Looking
losing
worse
his
and
face is deteriorating.
It's so
And
good.
David Naughton has to have these conversations with him, and it's some of it is even a Christmas Carol-esque when
Right.
Ebenezer Scrooge has to have the conversation with Marley, and there's just uncomfortable, awkward moments.
But the
because
dark
of the
comedy,
macabre,
the dark comedy factor, actually, I think makes it what it is. It keeps it from being just a gore horror movie to keeping entertaining. Absolutely, that's a great point.
Definitely, and you can't ignore the Bad Moon Rising part of the soundtrack there for Creedence Clearwater Revival. So, my number 4, American Werewolf in London.
Another great call. All right, so what did you have for number 3?
Number 3, keep the list moving. This one is a little bit more thriller than it is horror, but it is a phenomenal movie. I watch it every October, and it is Zodiac. Zodiac with Jake Gyllenhaal. This is a David Fincher flick. David Fincher has a very specific directing style. It is deliberate. It is very time sensitive. He captures everything about the era that he is filming about, and this was obviously took place in the late 60s, early 70s, and Robert Downey Jr. I tell you what, if you're a Robert Downey Jr. fan, this was his absolute finest performance yet. He is arrogant, smarmy, humorous, and brave all at the same time. This movie, flat out, so many good actors are in this one. Anthony Edwards makes a little bit of a comeback, playing
Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, plays a detective alongside Mark. His name escapes me, but he's a phenomenal actor today. Number 3, Zodiac. You got to watch that movie around Halloween. It's just a fantastic, well done film.
I'm gonna have to check that one out because I will admit that one has evaded me. So Zodiac. All right.
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo. I had a feeling that's what you were trying to get out there. Yeah. All right. So my number 3. This one's going to be somewhat cliche, but it's again going back to what I was saying before about the the 70s, 80s franchises when horror was kind of in its heyday. Number 3 for me is the original 1978 John Carpenter film Halloween, the original Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis. A lot of these franchises could have made the list. For me, Halloween stood above the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Streets, the original Halloween stood above those for me because, not to say it was in and of itself believable, but comparatively it was somewhat believable. I mean, it was just, it was a guy. It wasn't a burnt up ghost with a claw with blades. It wasn't some lady's son who drowned to death in the pond who never dies. This was a guy who, murdered his sister at 6, was in a mental institution for like 15 years, escaped, and just naturally wanted to come back to his old neighborhood and satisfy some murderous urges. To me, that resonates. That seems like that's legit. Okay, I buy that.
Great.
And he threw an incredible mask on.
William Shatner.
That mask is fantastic.
William Shatner face. Yep.
I just thought that is the epitome of like old school horror when we go back to what movies kind of transcend. And I think the original Halloween, granted, it's gone off the rails with the number of movies in the franchise. We have a Halloween Kills out right now, available on Peacock. It's not a plug; it's just the truth. I actually might watch it, but nonetheless, I think the series has been interesting. I think it all started with that first one. I think the first one was still horror, close to its finest. I'll take Halloween all day if it's on. Number 3 for me. Now we're going to roll into our top 2 Sundance. And this is my number 2 from 1982. Also a John Carpenter flick. This is what I thought you might have been getting at with one of your earlier picks, with American Werewolf in London. It was not that. But number 2 for me, somewhat another guilty pleasure movie, so bear with me, starring a younger Kurt Russell in Antarctica with a group of scientists who end up battling this alien organism that takes over the bodies of its victims. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Wow, The Thing.
Another one of those movies that story kind of offbeat, but I was always kind of enamored with it when I was younger. And again, it's on. If it's on, I'm watching it. I don't know why. I'm not going to give Kurt Russell an Oscar.
It just pulls you in.
It just pulls me in. But Kurt Russell, I believe Keith David was the other main character. The two of them ended up killing this thing at the thing at the end, but they also, by doing that, blew up the entire facility and presumably freeze to death at the end. So I don't know how much you really get out of that by killing the thing. But Keith David, side note, also co-starred in They Live, a 1988 flick by John Carpenter starring Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper.
Keith David or David Keith?
Oh, it's probably David Keith.
I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure.
2 first names. I mean,
yeah.
But
you'll find it either way. Google
that guy. But yeah, number 2 is The Thing for me. What's your number 2?
Really good pick. The Thing, by the way, is one of my dad's favorite movies. He always really enjoyed The Thing.
That does not surprise me whatsoever.
A little bit of a classic. It didn't do it for me. I haven't watched it more than once, so it was not a favorite for me. My number 2 is it's a classic.
All right.
It is not one that I will watch alone. And I can say that as a 43-year-old man on the verge of 44 within a month. I am not going to. It could be broad daylight, birds are chirping, neighbors are mowing the grass, kids are playing wiffle ball in the street, and if The Exorcist comes on, I'm changing the channel. I'll watch it in bed with my wife, but only knowing that she is going to fall asleep next to me, so that if something were to happen, I'm not going to die alone. There will be someone there with me.
There's some comfort there, yeah.
Or she would protect me. She probably could
I would actually, I think she could.
If I came up against this, but my goodness, this was an instant classic. It freaks you out. To your point, I'm not overly religious, but it had that feel of, oh, this is kind of possible, I guess. My parents took me to church. The devil is real on one level.
Right.
And the ending was so bittersweet when Father Karras takes the demon out of the girl, falls out of the window, dies down below. It is just the absolute. When I was doing this list, I Googled a couple things. I had to. I apologize, but one review on The Exorcist said it just gets under your skin and stays with you after watching it, and that is The Exorcist in a nutshell. That's my number 2.
I cannot disagree with that. Great points. Great flick. Absolutely. Exorcist.
All right.
That brings us to our number 1. Now, I want to, when you get into this, I want you to go get into a little bit. Give me the year that's from, and I want to see if I can guess it. If you know the year that it's from.
Sure. I want to say that it is 2008. Oh, let me just take a look.
Somewhat recent though. This is not an oldie but goodie. Okay.
I hit the nail on the head. It's a 2008 film. Once again, I won't watch this one by myself. Broad daylight.
I'm gonna make a guess. I'll let you finish. Actually, I have 2 guesses, but I'll let you finish. Then I'm gonna make my guess.
I even hate recommending it to people because I think they'll watch it, get freaked out, and then come back to me and say, "Why did you recommend that movie? Like I couldn't sleep for 4 days." It is The Strangers.
That was exactly my guess.
Liv Tyler, Scott Speedman.
Yes.
Talk about a low budget flick. I don't know how much it cost to make it. Liv Tyler, probably her salary was the highest expenditure on this one, because it's a story about a guy that looks to propose to his longtime girlfriend. She turns him down, and it's the aftermath of those two going back to his parents' old vacation house in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of a quiet street in suburbia, but really quiet, like very desolate. And these strangers come knocking on the door late at night. And this is that type of flick that you say to yourself, oh, this is possible. Oh, this could happen.
Yeah.
And they wear
no motive, nothing.
No motive, no nothing. And they wear those the creepy masks.
Yeah.
It is similar to The Exorcist. It gets under your skin and it stays with you. And the loud bangs, the sound in this movie, the use of sound was really impressive. My number one top horror flick, it is The Strangers.
So The Strangers ended up number 8 on my list. In hindsight now, I think it should have been higher. Yeah, and just to your point, that's a movie, going back to what you were saying before about situations where you don't want to watch it alone, etc. That's the type of movie that when you watch it or you think about it and you are kind of like in your house at night, maybe like right now, and you think about
you're double checking the locks, you're making sure
if you hear a weird noise, you're like, all right, maybe I don't want to hang out too close to the window, that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, that's a fantastic pick. All right, so that's gonna take me into my number one.
Yeah, your number one.
This one, it's probably gonna it's high up on a lot of people's lists. I don't care. To me, it's an all-time classic 1980 Stanley Kubrick. It's The Shining. I know this. A lot of it's the storyline. For me, after the first time I saw it a long time ago, it got to me, and the more I watched it would get to me more and more and more. It's Kubrick's obviously got a lot of movies. A lot of people he has his detractors, he has his fans, etc. I think it's obviously his crown jewel. I think Jack Nicholson is absolutely brilliant in this as Jack Torrance. Side note, there actually is a documentary, which I'd encourage anyone, if they haven't seen it, to see it. There's a documentary style film about the making of this, like Kubrick's adaptation of the book, the Stephen King novel. And it's just about a lot of people who think they've decoded hidden messages and symbols that are used in the film. It's called Room 237. I saw it years ago. I'd watch it again. It's fantastic. Another part of this movie that makes me almost love it in a way is how much I hated Shelley Duvall playing Wendy Torrance in the movie. I couldn't stand people. I can't stand Shelley Duvall in this movie.
Acclaimed for this,
she was, and she annoys the ever living shit out of me in this movie. But maybe that's part of what makes me go back to it. I don't know. It's weird. The red rum, the snow maze, all that stuff. In the end, it's always going to take number one for me, despite all these other great movies. But yeah, number one.
Interesting.
The Shining.
The Shining. When that movie comes on, I change it immediately. Not because I get freaked out by it, but I just hate
don't
it.
like
It's no, it is nails on a chalkboard. It is going to bring on a migraine. I don't find the creepy factor to be overwhelming. I find the entire film annoying. I will say I am outvoted on that in my own house. My wife, my kids, they think it is phenomenal. They tell me every Halloween season that I am off base. And I guess what is kind of cool about that movie is, it's another one that you can put on in an old New England blizzard, and get the fire stoked and go into the fireplace, and you put on The Shining, and it's got that effect. I will say that, but I'm not a fan. But a lot of people are.
It's funny, your earlier point too about The Strangers. It somewhat applies to me to this movie as well. Again, the use of, and sometimes lack their use of, sound in the way it plays. I think that's what makes it kind of brings
critical
the
element.
Factor.
Critical element for most horror movies. It's always indicative of foreboding. So.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up our top 5 horror movies.
Those are good lists. We did
Those,
pretty
yeah, that was,
well
and again,
not to have any overlap really there.
no,
Interesting.
yeah, I think again it was a fun exercise. I didn't have as hard a time with that as I did the '90s movies, but it was still interesting to go back and even us going through them now, recalling seeing some of yours and thinking, wow, that's right. Oh yeah, no, that one too.
Yeah.
And even just doing this got me in the mood to want to watch more again.
Right. Yep.
And which brings me to actually another side note is that there were a couple that I think potentially could have made the list, but I admittedly haven't been able to watch them. And one of them I
Yep.
wanted to watch last night just to see if it would make my list, and I didn't have time.
Yep.
The Jordan Peele movies, Get Out,
Yep.
and
Yep.
Us.
Yep.
I haven't seen either one yet, and I hate to say that because I want to see them, and I just haven't made the time. By all accounts, they're amazing. So I guess you throw honorable mention to those as well. Were there
I
any
had
movies
Get
that,
Out at number 23. That was number
did you?
23.
Okay.
It made my top 26. Get Out was definitely
Any
there.
notables that you want to throw out there that didn't quite make the top 5? I'm curious now. What else? What you that you kind of had a tough time with them that made your top 20, but didn't necessarily get into the 5.
Yeah, I hated not putting Sleepy Hollow in there. Now, Sleepy
Ooh.
Hollow is not the movie that creeps you out,
Right.
but it is my go-to Halloween flick. It just brings me back to old New England. It is, I love, and I know it takes place in New York. I'm okay there, but it's New England-esque, and anything around the Revolutionary War times gets me.
Right.
So certainly, I had Sleepy Hollow. That was number 7. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was 8.
Okay.
I wanted to get that up there, and lastly, Pet Cemetery.
Ooh, Pet
It
Sematary.
was number 11 for me. I couldn't get it into my
Another one
top
I
5.
forgot about. I admittedly
Couldn't
forgot
get
about
it.
that.
Yep, number
So
11.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you mentioned that was 18 for me. I probably could have gone higher. One that I had a tough time. Let's put it this way: my final cut from the 5. This is where I had a tough time, juggling. My number 6. I don't believe you're a big zombie guy. 28 Days Later. Cillian Murphy.
Love
I
him.
also believe
He's
2008. That's a fantastic flick.
Yeah.
It obviously is about a zombie apocalypse, but there's a lot more to it in terms of societal downfall and a lot of creepier things that go on that aren't related to the zombies. Number 7 actually was an absolute classic. I wanted to get this in my 5 as well, and I couldn't. Was the original Psycho.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Starring
that's
Anthony Perkins. That's
Alfred
another one that
Hitchcock.
if it's on, it's a Hitchcock. I think it's obviously one of the godfathers of horror and thriller. There's a lot of your standard ones here. Like another one that I really liked and ended up falling kind of down because it just wouldn't make it. At number 11 was this movie called Black Christmas, which is essentially. Are you aware of this movie? Okay.
It didn't make my top 26, but I'm aware. I am aware of this
Okay.
movie.
I just only because I think it has some novelty to it. I enjoy it because of the novelty. I definitely skew towards the older movies, just because of the grainier nature of those films, kind of like draws me in. But yeah, then you had some of your classics like Friday the 13th Part 2 at 17, Poltergeist came in at 20,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Poltergeist, I had that one too.
Okay. All right. So I think that pretty much wraps up our. Let's go wrap up that segment, and it's really going to kind of wrap up our show at this point. So, we're going to be coming back next week. Another big episode. We're going to come back. We're going to be talking about the Sox, either in the World Series or we're wrapping up the season and looking towards the off season. Hopefully the former, not the latter, but we'll find out. We're going to do a little review on the Pats Jets, and we're also going to look and preview the Pats going to LA, take on the Chargers. We'll have another fantasy segment. We'll have some more NFL picks. And
and remember Matt Canada from Pro Football Network. He'll give us his take on the dumpster fire Miami Dolphins. And is there any miracle in Miami? for this season? Is there any way they could sneak into the playoffs? Does their schedule allow for anything there? We'll talk to him next week as well.
Well, clearly they're going to be back in the upswing because they're going to be coming off of a big win at home over the Falcons, according to you.
That's right.
Part of your 80%. But sure. We're gonna have some more NFL picks. We're gonna go over that, and then next week we're gonna come back with another top 5, another good one. Credit to you again, Sundance. We're coming back with 90s rap songs, and if no one had figured it out already, these top 5s the last few weeks are pretty much indicative of our age bracket because we keep coming with this older stuff with the 90s, but that's fine. We're not ashamed of that. We love it. So another big show next week. That said, we're going to go on before we get out of here. We're going to go ahead and plug us a little bit here. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at 2 Padres Pod. We're also on Facebook now as well, Dos Padres Podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, as we said before, please like, comment, subscribe. We're not going to beg, but we're kind of begging. Turn notifications on so you don't miss a show in the future. If you're listening to the audio, we're found on most of the main platforms, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Please rate and review. We love you for it. Sundance, what do we say? It's all part of our world takeover. We just want everyone to join us for the ride.
Just want you to be a part of it.
Just a simple request. We just want everyone to come in, be part of the Dos Padres family.
There it is.
All right. That's the Sundance Kid. This guy, that's the Sundance Kid. Don't forget it. I'm Major J. We are the Dos Padres. Hasta tus sueños. We are